Reaction. This is United States versus India. Who would win? Army/military comparison. But on the infographic show. Is it just army or a whole military? I'm guessing the whole military, navy and everything. I don't know. Okay, this is not much of a comparison. Alright. Look, India is not the same it used to be 10-15 years ago. Obviously not as higher scale as China is. China jumped a lot, right? Obviously communism, government, CCP just said this fucking thing is happening and that doesn't, whatever comes in the way gets removed. India doesn't work like that. It's democracy, obviously. So, it's like democracy is the slowest moving economy, right? So USA versus India is stupid. There are no scenarios where India comes on top. But India is not as small as it was like 15-20 years ago. So depending on the scenarios, who knows? If USA invades India as a whole, would India able to be, keep up or put up? Maybe. Defending country has an edge always. India is not that small. India has enough things covered. But no, I don't think so. Like USA and its logistics, the power that USA has, the equipment USA has, this is just stupid. But then again, there would be no scenario where USA versus India ever happens. But yeah, there will be like maybe frictions because of other countries. Some kind of alliances happen. I don't even know. But USA versus India point blank is never happening. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Let's watch this one. Remember, if you like my next one, subscribe so that way I know which type of videos to react to more. Check out the extended, there's a link in the description. Check out the end card. And yeah, let's do it.
As we saw earlier this year in our episode, The Top 10 Most Powerful Militaries, the USA is regarded as having the strongest, most advanced, and undoubtedly best funded military in the entire world. This powerhouse of a military is buttressed with arguably superior computer technology to any other country, while America's nuclear capabilities, along with Russia, are above and beyond any other nation. Some of you may have been surprised to find India in 4th place on that list, a country perhaps not renowned for its military strength, but in recent years, it has experienced vast modernization.
I don't think anybody's surprised. India has 1.4 billion people. Are you fucking kidding me? India's rivalry of China and Pakistan, both nuclear powers, both are aggressive. India has to be at number 4 or around it. Imagine if India was number 9 or number 10. We would be screwed completely. I'm pretty sure you heard about like enough skirmishes or like trying to take over states. India would be like, I don't know how Poland was for years, right? For centuries and centuries. There's always a power that comes around that like eats Poland. Poland's come back and gets eaten again, right? India would be something similar to that. China basically takes Andhra Pradesh or whatever. Pakistan takes or Kashmir or whatever. India has to be at that number. So I don't think people are surprised.
India is also the world's 2nd most populated country, and in terms of boots on the ground has the 3rd largest military personnel, not to mention more military volunteers to call upon than any other country in the world. So how do these two countries compare in matters of military prowess? That's what we will find out in this episode of the Infographics show, USA versus India. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell button so that you can be part of our notification squad. Let's start by looking at the behemoth that is the United States military. The US has a population of just over 325 million people, 1.3 million of whom are active military personnel. The country has another 811,000 reserve personnel. Where the USA far exceeds any other nation is in regard to its gigantic defense budget. From its $18 trillion plus GDP, the USA spends around $611 billion on its military, which is about 3.3% of its GDP. In terms of spending, this is around 3 times more than China, the next biggest military spender, spends on its defense. It was reported this year that the new US administration has proposed to increase the military budget by a further $54 billion.
By the way, China jumped. In 2010, the number of US was ridiculous. It's like US was spending more than the top 10 countries, other top 10 countries combined. China jumped up. That's why it's like 3 times and numbers like that. Otherwise, even China wasn't that close. So the number that US had, like the budget was insane.
India has a population of about 1.3 billion people, 1.4 million of whom are active military personnel. A massive 1,155,000 people are serving as reserve personnel. In terms of sheer numbers, India is in front of the US, but in terms of budgets, it is leagues behind. From India's $9.489 trillion GDP, the 3rd biggest GDP in the world, around $55.9 billion.
Less than 10th. Less than 10th. Alright? How does this even work? Okay, 30-40 years ago when technology wasn't that big of a deal, maybe you can say like you can't just throw money at everything. That's not how it works. Maybe. But in today's world, drones, AI, all the electronics, things removing people and personnel, money and resources are the kind of going to be the big deal in future. 20, 30 or even 50 years from now, how much resource you have, literal resource, I'm not talking about money, resource. How much resource you have and how much money you have in the end. That will dictate how powerful military wise you are, because one person can like control that some 50% has to control, because everything's automated now. So this US military budget is going to make sure that there stays that kind of power for future.
Dollars is spent on its military. It's projected that by 2020, that number will be something like 64 billion as India pushes towards further modernizing its military. In terms of ground artillery, the US has around 5,884 tanks, 41,000 armored fighting vehicles, 1,934 self-propelled guns, 1,299 towed artillery, and 1,331 multiple launch rockets.
I like how tanks are given a separate number, obviously tanks. But armored fighting vehicles are so many different armored vehicles like IFVs and all those different things. You think that tanks kind of falls into that category as well, because tanks also has purpose. They're also armored vehicle. But no, tanks are so famous that you have to put at another number. And obviously you can argue like, are tank obsolete, not obsolete? Like, would they work the same way they did in the past? Like post Gulf War, is there even like any tank thing that was significant? Who knows? But yeah.
Systems. Here, India's numbers are far lower, with the country owning 4,426 tanks, 6,704 armored fighting.
I mean, it's not as low as I would have thought. Tank is like decent. 4,400. That's more than I thought. I'm not gonna lie. Okay.
Vehicles, 290 self-propelled guns, 7,414 towed artillery, and 292 multiple launch rocket systems.
See, geopolitics comes into play. Why so many towed artilleries? Pakistan and mostly China. Artilleries are going to be a thing if you're going to fight in Himalayas, right? So it makes sense. Self-propelled guns is like close to nothing compared to US. Same as armored fighting vehicles. India is not looking, push through the line type of fighting, right? India is never the aggressor. It's like pacifist thing is in India's DNA. India is never going to be the aggressor. India will always respond. That's India's policy always. So if China is the aggressor, obviously you're going to need things that works in Himalayas. Pakistan can also be an aggressor. It has been in the past, but like the more and more that economy collapses, that becomes lower. But if it collapses too much, it might rise up again. Like they might attack again. Like that's apparently how it works. But yeah.
India's land equipment is said to have been in dire need of an upgrade for some time, and this is why large investments are on the way. India is in the process of developing and inducting a fleet of Arjun Mk2 third-generation battle tanks, while under the Field Artillery Rationalization Plan. $3 billion will be spent on 3,000 to 4,000 pieces of new artillery. The USA largely relies on its third-generation battle tank, the M1 Abrams, a machine that has proved itself in battle many times and often appears somewhere at the top of lists of the world's best tanks.
I'm not gonna lie, I like M1 Abrams so much because I've seen so many tanks video where tank fire. Not a single video has like, every dust and smoke rising around it. Only in M1 Abrams videos are like that. Every time he shoots his cannon, every dust just rises up like fucking Darth Vader come or something. That is insane. That 75-ton hunk of and the big ass cannon is insane. Obviously, there's very limited use of it, right? Because what US always envision like Navy/Marine thing, because they're not gonna fight something in American soil or around it. Come on. So use of M1 Abrams, okay, how much is there anyway? So they're looking for smaller tanks and things. But yeah, Abrams is insane.
The newest iteration of this tank, the M1A2 SEP V4, will begin testing in 2021. Overall, in spite of India's attempts to modernize its military land vehicles, the USA is firmly ahead in this arena. In terms of military aircraft, the USA is almost spoiled for choice. From its 13,444 aircraft, the US has...
Just skip this section, this is stupid. Just skip. There's nothing. There's the fucking comparison when it comes to air dominance or anything like that.
Some of the world's most impressive aerial fighting machines. This includes 195 F-22A Raptors, 957 F-16 Fighting Falcons, 257 F-15E Strike Eagles, and 71 F-35A Lightning IIs.
Now this video is from 2017, so I don't know if they're going to talk about Rafales here. But let's just say India for very recently, even F-16 was too much for India, right? Obviously Indian pilots were good, so MiG-21 shot down an F-16 or something, Pakistani F-16. It was how the fuck that happened? It's a really old Soviet plane. But after that, India's like, whoa, what the fuck? We need to do something. So we got the Rafales, basically. I don't know if this video will talk about Rafale or something. I'm pretty sure this video is from 2017.
The F-35 is said to be perhaps the most advanced military aircraft ever to be invented, although it's also come under scrutiny for costing too much and also suffering the occasional developmental setback. It was once said the expense is so much, the F-35 is just too big to fail. India's Air Force is no slouch, however, and is said to be the fourth largest in the world in terms of personnel and aircraft. From its 1,720 aircraft, about 900 are combat capable. Its fleet consists of Russian-built Sukhoi Su-30 MKIs and Mikoyan MiG-29s, as well as the highly rated French-built multi-role fighter, the Dassault Mirage 2000. Both navies are also ranked in the top 10 of the
Yeah,
world's
we have Rafales too, I think, not just Mirage, but yeah.
strongest navies, although the US is largely seen as being way out in front in the number one spot. The giant US Navy consists of 11 aircraft carriers, 22 cruisers,
Alright, this is the section you should really skip. US Navy versus US Indian Navy now. That's the I don't think there's any comparison between any Navy versus US Navy, but yeah.
67 destroyers, 8 frigates, 75 submarines, 0 corvettes, 9 amphibious assault ships, 11 mine warfare ships, and 55 patrol ships. The Indian Navy has just 1 aircraft carrier, 0 cruisers, 11 destroyers, 14 frigates, 15 submarines, 23 corvettes, 0 amphibious assault ships, 7 mine warfare ships, and 72 patrol ships. As for nuclear capabilities, the USA and India are 2 of 9 countries in the world that have nuclear weapons. The difference is that from almost 15,000 nuclear weapons on the planet, the US owns almost half of them. Russia, the other half, and 7 other countries make up the rest with relatively small nuclear arsenals. One of those countries is India, with around 120 nuclear warheads. None of these are deployed, however, while America has an estimated 1,800 deployed nuclear weapons. Something else to take into account is the oil needed to power a military. The USA produces around 8.6 million barrels of oil per day, while consuming around 19 million barrels daily. It has around 36.5 billion barrels of proven oil reserves. India.
Wait a minute, so 8.6, that's a surprise, man. I thought in US's number would be much higher, how much they produce. One thing people don't realize about USA is like, I don't know, like obviously you're watching this like, wow, I knew that, that's what you're gonna say, but there's a reason why you're watching this video. You watch videos like this a lot. General public don't know much about like how much US actually produces, right? Whenever they think about like oil produce and things like that, they always think about some Middle Eastern country, Russia and things like that. But USA is like, because USA is like ahead on a lot of things, you would just like intuitively think, ah, come on, they're probably not producing much oil. No, they do. They do insane amount of productions. They're like self-reliant in some way, right? Look at the reserve. But I'm surprised. I thought the number would be much higher than the, around they consume. It's like if the number is 19 million, I would have thought something like 14 million produced or something. It's surprised is less than half. Okay, so as I think USA needs to focus on like using electrics a lot more than oil, and focus on electric, energy basically, or like producing and things like that. US can do that. Of all the countries in the world, US can definitely focus on that. And US always have been like one of those people, one of those countries that try to be self-reliant on all front. That would help, I think.
India produces 767,000 barrels of oil a day, consumes 3.5 million barrels daily, and has around 5.5 billion barrels in reserve. While India has almost certainly become a superpower in reserve.
Alright, look at that shit. 1.4 billion people and consumes 3.5 million. Compared to 400 million is like 19 million barrels. Like, where is that going? Where is 90 billion? I mean, people are not driving 3 cars at once. I'm guessing like, I don't know, Navy and things like that. Military is consuming a lot of it. I don't know.
While India has almost certainly become a superpower regarding its military, its fast modernization could be no match for the experience of the United States, a country whose military is constantly being tested. India's military in recent times has been involved in mostly small conflicts and peacekeeping missions, while the same cannot be said about the US military. Since 1776, the United States has been involved in a total of 103 wars, which makes its armed forces more experienced than any other modern military. We must also look towards the future, a technological future which is to some extent—
I mean, look at their arms. They fucking created Marines. Was Navy not enough? No, we need Marines for amphibious assault. They're creating whole sections of militaries that others don't even have, right? I think China is trying to like copy that or something, creating more and more sections of things. I don't even know. But Chinese structure, I saw like how it works from the top to bottom. It's kind of like code is different. I don't think they can adjust even if they wanted to, like USA. And US has logistics, there's a reason behind it because so many years of experience. You can't just pick up something that's like in 2 decades, I'll be equal to USA. Even if India suddenly becomes like extremely faster growing economy, like surpassing even China and just like equal to GDP of USA, even then India can't just suddenly become powerful enough military wise equal to USA. So this comparison was just weird.
Extent driven by American innovation. Here we should take into account cyber warfare, advanced spying methods, the hacking of not just military databases but connected machines or missiles, drone capabilities.
Okay, one thing is damn sure, not compared to USA, but India has like ISRO and like satellite capabilities, let's just say, which is like most countries don't, right? It's like, I'm pretty sure, was it Britain? I think it's Britain, like Naval launched a satellite. When you hear it, like Britain never launched a satellite, it's like one of the best, one of the first world countries, like former empire. So when you things like that, like, okay, so India is like kind of in a good place, consider that because of ISRO. So when it comes to satellite things, capabilities of satellites, if need be, satellite warfare if happens ever, like weapons in space type of way, India still can be there who can do it. So that's plus point at least compared to other countries. US is already way too ahead.
Machine learning algorithms used to understand vast amounts of data, automation software used for military purposes, and even the possibility of soldiers being replaced by artificially intelligent machines. As we speak, the military is
There you go. He had to drop Terminator in the end there. Humans. Here comes Arnold Schwarzenegger with metal.
undergoing huge transformations with computer technology leading that transformation. Only recently, the Pentagon decided to start using machine learning algorithms to assist military personnel to go over thousands of hours of drone footage from the Middle East. The USA is arguably the world's leader in this respect, although India is also a powerhouse of computer technology. The city of Bangalore in India is sometimes referred to as the second Silicon Valley, so it would be unwise not to respect India's IT acumen. We might also think about what's been called the Pentagon's Terminator conundrum, a future in which the machines we created have become so powerful in terms of cognizance that they decide to wipe out the human race. In that case, one day we could find ourselves all on the same side. So what are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, obviously India is nowhere close to that, but 1.4 billion people, doctrine is not like, let's just say, hard and extreme like common. It's a democratic country, right? So in the end, far future, I see India getting really stronger and having the foundation of being strong. I can envision that, right? Have you ever seen or call anyone who's like anything tech related and he was an Indian, right? So we are slowly rising, nowhere near the top, which is USA, obviously not even close to that. But in like, I don't know, like in 100 years, right? India could be really powerful. India is known to like, overachieve in a way where people expect some things to be here and India kind of like passes that point much earlier. I don't know, could be because of the current government. I don't know much. I don't analyze that too much. But yeah, I can see that. I should have watched something like China versus India. Even then, it's like, I don't know. China is going to be ahead of India, obviously. But China is not experienced as US. So there isn't like an X factor there, right? China versus India, who would win? Even if China has a lot of resources and a lot of military power, can they use that? When were they in any war in the past, right? So there's many question marks there. If anything to go by Russia and Ukraine, like Russia is not even close to winning it, right? China might have a lot of power, but can they use that against India? So things like that. I should watch China versus India video rather than this. Alright, well, if you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe, and yeah, check out the end card right now, and I'll see you next time.